Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you are choosing to watch this. I would say grab a brew, but I don't think it's going to be a brew length, this conversation. So you might want to have your lunch, your tea, your dinner, your takeaway, whatever. But settle down, enjoy, and hopefully we'll bring some nuggets of information and golden bits of nugget and information that you didn't know about us as individuals. Now, who is this lovely lady that I'm joined by this morning? It's Parveen Ashraf, better known as Parveen the Spice Queen. Good afternoon, Parveen.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening.
Exactly.
Good I know I am the Spice Queen because look at my mug.
Look at that. I love that. Strategically placed, of course, as is the book in the background.
Yeah.
So
I sometimes
you are Parveen the Spice Queen.
I am, and I rebranded about 3-4 years ago, and that's given me a lot of she seems to, oh my God, I talk about in the third person.
Alter ego.
She seems to empower me to sort of perform and be my TV self.
So rewinding back, so of course those are people who don't know who you are the familiar face on ITV and have been over the last few years with your cooking show, Indian Authentic Cooking, and it's a lovely story because we met about well, it was about a year ago, wasn't it, at Leicester, Love Ladies Business Group, a networking group.
Is it only yet? But we had this.
There was a connection. Obviously, there's a connection there, yeah. And I've got to be honest, there's not many people of in my friend circle that are Asian because I don't live in those sorts of areas. I don't live in the area where there's lots of Asians. I never, 20 years ago, I married a white chap, so we didn't live in an area predominantly white or Asian. It was mixed. We chose to make sure that it was a mixed area. So it was very interesting that I should be connected to you, but I think we shared a lot of experiences and realizations from our youth growing up. So you were born here like me, as second generation to first generation parents. How was growing up for Parveen the Spice Queen? I bet she wasn't shouting about that when she was younger.
The person you see here. Actually, no, she wasn't. First of all, Bookshaw, I have to say, and I'm going to be a bit derogatory, are you a coconut then? Are you a coconut?
I'm a bounty boy. I don't mind admitting it. I'm a bloody bounty.
I got a comment on Twitter after the ITV show went live and said, "Oh, Parveen, what accent is it? Yorkshire? Is she British? Is she Asian? She's a bit of a coconut." So I had my PA and I said, just answer back and say, "Yeah, I am a coconut. I am brown on the outside and white on the inside because we were raised in England, so we have British values. We have British values, also have Asian heritage. So it's like a whole mishmash of different cultures, ideas, values that come together in one package."
And I don't think people realize just how, like you just said to me, your kids are embracing their Asianness and their heritage and wearing it on their sleeve. I never wore it on my sleeve, I'll be honest, and I don't think you did you? But you know why? Because I think what we were going through, that transition, it wasn't like your parents, they only knew that way and that's all they lived their life by. We were then brought into that life and then we had to live this life. So we had to straddle the two. And that was not an easy task. So I take that as my reason for not embracing it because I was so confused. Where did I fit in? What do I do? I have to speak English here and I speak Indian at home, Punjabi. But I spoke English with my dad and Punjabi with my mum because she couldn't speak English very well. So it was a very kind of life. I don't know about you.
It was, but the thing is, it was the norm. It was what we grew up, so we knew no different. I knew no different to coming home, taking off my school uniform, putting on my shalwar kameez, Punjabi suit, and getting in the kitchen making dal with mum. So that was the norm for us. We knew no different. Our parents were Asian, and we didn't know we were bilingual. We were bilingual from the moment we were younger. So I spoke English at school, and I spoke Punjabi at home. And then I decided in my teens to learn Urdu. I'd watched a film called Kabhi Kabhi, and I suddenly saw these brown people on the screen. I thought, oh, okay, and I can relate. And that's why I now know my parents watched Bollywood movies because they related to the brown people on the screen. They didn't see it on the TV in this country in the mid-60s. My parents came early 60s. So Bollywood films were part of our culture. So we used to watch these films. And I loved the colour, hence the sequins.
Yes.
I understood the language. And I remember watching the whole movie, not understanding a word, but loving the music and feeling that this is my heritage. So I decided at 14 to take, do you remember O-levels? Before GCSEs, the younger viewers.
Well, I was GCSE actually. I was just in the year.
Well, you see, I'm older than you. I don't know. Well, I'm 55 this next
Wow.
week. Next week. So six child of the 60s. So I remember wanting to learn this as a language. So I strategically and sort of forced myself, not strategically, but I did want to learn Urdu. So I learned to read and write Urdu. So I can speak Punjabi and English, of course. I speak a bit of French and I read and write Urdu. So actually, I just feel that, yeah. And I now do Arabic calligraphy is one of my passions. Is I do calligraphy. Yeah.
So obviously you are a creative. It's evident that you are a
I
creative.
think
It's
so.
there, isn't it? And you've kind of made that your passion in life in the way of cooking. So you decided, what was the moment when you realized that, I know because you've worked in mainstream work and jobs, haven't you, before now?
Long, yeah.
And what made you think that, okay, you know what, I'm going to go down the path of chef, because you are a private chef. People can hire you to cook for them. And you also have obviously your cookbook. Sorry?
You said people can hire you.
To cook for them, yes, to cook for them. And of course, the book came out. How long's the book been out now?
The book is strategically depicted over my shoulder over here. The book came out 2016, I think, 2016, late 2016. The reason I know that is because after 5 years of trying to find a publisher and a literary agent, it was so difficult. The reason I know that is that's the year that I lost my mum. The book's dedicated to her. So it's a very bittersweet year. And I think what I did was, rather than grieve my mum, which was a very difficult time, was to pour all the creativity, energy, stories into the book. So if you see the book, it's like a biography. This story is from the 70s, going to the Blackpool with a stack of aloo parathas and tea in a plastic flask. My children don't know what plastic flask is because we didn't have little chefs or McDonald's.
Thermos flag,
And
yeah.
so I tell stories of going to Blackpool, Pleasure Beach, driving there, getting there in my dad's big van, all 7 Asians of us, like there were, and not paying to go on the ride, just looking at the lights, having a partisan tea, and driving back.
It's true.
And so the stories like that are in the book. Stories of my mother using Himalayan salt are in the book. All the stories about the recipes. So it's a very personal book. It took me 5 years to write, and I am really, really proud of it. And I love the book. Every image was styled by me in my kitchen.
You had a lot of say in what went into that book and what went on with it, didn't you? Which is, great.
My publisher would disagree with you because we did argue a lot. And one thing which is brilliant, Taryn, so I've got to say it, shout at her, she's brilliant. She pushed me from being just a writer and a blogger type person to an author, and the depth in the book, you can feel it, you read it, because it talks about my mum in the past, and every image, every recipe has an image, even if it's minted onions, which we love with our roti.
Yeah.
Said, is there a recipe? Is there a picture? And I said, Taryn, it's minted onions. She went, recipe, picture, and that's what you find in the book. Every single recipe has a picture, and that's the feedback I get now. People say, oh, Parveen, you've got a really good picture of every recipe, and we like that. And every dish was cooked by me, styled by me, and photographed by me and my photographer. Well, her.
That's a real labor of love, that is. It's evident. You can tell by the way you speak about it and the way you sort of made sure that the design of it turned out to be. Now, isn't it interesting that the book was 5 years in the making? So you published it and you had it published in 2016, which was the year that you say you lost your mum, yeah?
Yeah. I'm not going to bend up. I'm not going to stand up because I've got pajamas on underneath.
No, I know. That's going to say grab the book, yeah.
And the thing is, we're going to talk about spirituality and energy. So the recipes are, and I'm going to try and show you books. So
put it in front of you. Put it in front of your chest there. Put it in front of your, under your chin.
For example, that recipe is a picture of dal. I knew that I needed some garlic in there, so I styled it the way that it looks real. It's not photoshopped. Yeah. It's incredibly real. There's chicken masala, chaat. I mean, look, that looks quite messy, but the chaat is quite messy.
It is. It's lovely.
And your bodies look good. So it was and that one, I remember cooking that. The reason it looks so fresh and delicate and juicy is because it is. We didn't have any kind of added things. We just,
well, you didn't, because normally they create fake, plasticine kind of food, don't they? Plastic looking food, yeah.
And then the key thing about this book is, my gajar ka halwa is styled on a chadar.
It's on a piece of cloth, is it?
It's my mum's shawl.
Ah, because you did say that you put in items of your mum's clothings and whatnot throughout some of the pictures, weren't they?
They were, and I hadn't seen a cookbook style in this manner, but that doesn't mean, just because it hasn't been done, Buckshot, doesn't mean we can't do it. And
Correct.
then there isn't a picture of my mum's dedication, not a picture of her. That would have been too difficult.
Yeah.
So I've just put here, this book is dedicated to my late mum, who always loved, who cooked with love. Without her, I wouldn't have the courage and the knowledge to fulfill my dream.
Why did it come to pass? Why did it come to be that it just happened to be 2016? Did that
Um,
her passing galvanize you into finally just driving that thing home?
No, see, I'm an Asian girl, so I do a lot of East meets. Myself. Even that picture there, I'm wearing my mum's junni or dupatta in Urdu, and that's the one that I pray in. So it's so personal, and more so than a lot of people know. The mint in the mint recipes, the mint my mum planted, it goes on and on and on. So
Yeah.
it's very dear to me. And people always say, "Are you going to write another book?" I don't know if I've got it in me, but
This is the thing. This is the thing. It's never going to match anything that you do to
never going to
that.
match. And the picture of her on the book there, oh, see, I'm referring to her. I don't know what psychologists would make a field day of this, wouldn't they? So her on the book, she's there posing, and I'm not. I mean, we both act and we're in front of the screen, and we don't mind. We're used to it, hearing our voices, watching our faces. However, being photographed is a completely different job altogether, and to have an energy in a still form is difficult.
It is.
And so I had my hair and makeup done, and my photographer was a really good friend of mine. Again, I couldn't afford a photographer, so my friend's son Jack, who I've known since he was 4, he was my photographer, and he said, "Right, Parveen, just look up." And every time I looked up, I froze, and it was just so staged. Yeah. And I said, "I can't. I'm not a model." He said, "Well, you're gonna have to get used to being photographed. Is this is the job that you want to do?" So he said, "Well, do something you like." So I'm peeling this garlic. He said, "Do something." So I'm peeling garlic. I'm really peeling garlic there. And then he told me quite a naughty joke, and so I giggled. I giggled, and he caught the giggle, and then 3 seconds after that, the picture of me smiling is again awful. And so I argued a lot to have that picture on the cover. And the design of the cookbook was done by my brother-in-law, who's a graphic designer. Again, I couldn't afford, professional. We hate that word. He's a professional. I couldn't afford to pay for anybody. So my brother-in-law designed the front cover for me. He also designed my logo. So I had everything in-house, and everything was done on the cheap. A real labor of love, So that's why I'm looking down and not looking up, because
But I think that's great, because that's what you'd expect in a cookbook. You're cooking, you need to look down. It shouldn't be like it shouldn't be like that, I don't think. But so there's a lot of honesty there with that you expressing yourself and what went into the book. There's a lot of you being quite transparent and authentic. How easy have you found it to be that in your life?
I think sometimes what we portray on screen, even when I'm cooking, to make something look natural, you actually have to become quite unnatural. You have to act at being yourself. The food has to look good. And so there's so many things going on, your hair to look good, the food has to look good, has to look clean, the recipe has to be clear, and it has to be photographed and filmed. So it's quite unnatural to do what we do on screen, and we have to make it look natural. But I do think if you have a genuine passion and love for what you do, it will come across. And that's what happened. So I actually found the first process of filming a show, because it wasn't live, quite difficult, because I was used to live TV and just chatting and having a whole flow.
Because of course people can catch you on Ideal World, can't they, as well?
Yeah, I've been working for Ideal World for about 13 years. So I'd had 13 years in front of the camera selling my spice kits and my boxes and that kind of thing. So I'd had all that experience from the camera. However, filming for the ITV show, which was huge. I mean, it's prime time. It was Sunday mornings, 9:30, 10:30, a 10-part series. I had to up my game, and I found that difficult because I pushed myself artistically, and I had an amazing team. I mean, the team they gave me was just the best of what they could have to offer. So I had to up my game. So I found that difficult, but once I realized what my job was, is to make a TV show where the food looks good, I got into the zone, and the rest just flowed then.
And did you, thinking back now and going forward, how much easier is it for you to live and be who you really are? How much easier is it getting, now that when your mum's, I don't know about you, but my dad passed away 5-6 months ago, and there's a switch that flicks inside you that is inexplicable. You can't explain what it is. And even though I was very spiritual beforehand, something flicked inside, which made me think about the whole concept of life and what it is that we're doing here very differently to anything that I could ever have been told about. So that in turn has made me go through a bit of a transition over the last 6 months, and I'm still going through it for the better. And it's not necessarily just getting older, I don't think. I do think there's something very deep that's soul related to the soul and what it is that your purpose is here to do. Have you had that conversation with yourself? Do you feel that way about things like that? Are you doing what your soul wants to do?
Yeah, I think you're right. Sometimes I think, is it because we're getting older? And my mother used to say to me, you see this? And white hair, we've all got our whites now because we're not going to hairdressers. And she says, you see this? It's white. And I say, yeah, Mum, you've got white hair. She went, that's experience. And so sometimes we do have experience, and that gives us a bigger picture, and our perspective changes as we get older. So obviously my perspective has changed from being this young Asian girl growing up in Bradford, and I didn't want to be Asian. I wanted to fit in a white culture. I struggled living between an English world and at school and an Asian life at home. But then very, very early on in my life, I had tragedy very early on, and that then opened a whole new door to spirituality. My brother died at the age of 22.
Was
I
it
was
sudden?
15.
Was it sudden?
It was sudden. It was a car crash. And, it was one of the most traumatic things I had been through. I was 15. I was doing my O-levels at the time. But then my parents fell apart, so I took care of the family. I ended up nursing my mother, never knowing anything about self-harm, but her pain of bearing a 22-year-old son was incredible. I didn't relate. I didn't understand. I was 15. I think I was not very sympathetic towards her. In hindsight, if I look back, my son's 22 now. I would not know. I mean, no, I can't go there. Can't go there. My mum buried her child, and that changed me. And at that point, I thought, what is this life about? And I discovered my religion, Islam. I discovered my religion in a brand new way. I began praying. I became closer to God because I was very angry with God, actually.
You would be.
Very angry, taking away. So that at 15, I suddenly went from being a child at school, listening to Duran Duran, wearing, blow drying my hair, wearing 3 shades of eyeshadow, which we did in this 80s, and I suddenly had to grow up very quickly, and I did. It was, for me, my soul sort of awakened, then half awakened. There were 7 brothers and sisters. My sister got married. 2 weeks later, my brother died. My mother, actually, and I'm going to be honest because people will my mother she had a nervous breakdown, and we had to have her taken away and looked after. And my father gave up on life. So I'm having this family of mum, dad, and 7 siblings. Like the Asian Waltons, we had such a wonderful, wonderful life growing up. Suddenly, everything changed with the death of my brother. My parents gave up. My mother had a mental breakdown, and I ended up taking care of 3 teenage brothers. And so I became this very grown-up, dictatorial, bossy, organized sister. And that organized girl became an organized woman. So people call me a control freak, and my husband would say that. I very much like being in control. So I changed, and that opened my soul to my religion. It was incredibly painful. There's not a day goes by I don't speak about my brother. His daughter's now 40, and I'm seeing her next week. So it's very painful. So I went through life, got married, and then you just go through life, have children, you do what mothers do, and I did that. And then when my father died again, that brought another sort of little piece of my heart, got a little sort of like a little bit taken away. He died at Mecca, but as a Muslim, like, that is the most blessed place you can die. And that changed my mother again. But nothing compares really with losing my mum. I really felt when she'd gone, I'd lost the umbrella, the love, the support, the criticism, the inspiration of having somebody who loved me unconditionally. And people that have got parents don't understand. And when you lose a parent, you understand that she worried about me having a cold cup of tea. She worried whether I looked tired. She worried about me like nobody did. And I, as a mother, still worry about my children. So losing my mother changed me incredibly, but actually made me softer. It made me softer. It made me more emotional
and more connective from the heart. This probably has had
definitely.
to open up a lot more, hasn't it? And I don't know about you, but I lived the last 20 odd years with my head ruling my heart because it was a way of preservation. Because if I let my heart get involved, that would be weakness, which would mean that I'd fall to bits and I'd go to shit. Do you know what I mean? So I had to keep this out. I had to keep this out of the equation. But since last 18 months, I've been working on releasing that. And it's been a good job because I probably wouldn't have been able to grieve like I have with my dad's passing in January. I'm not saying I had a great relationship with him. I'm not pretending that for 1 minute, but it's still a parent and it's still, because I've never lost anybody close to me before now.
Oh,
Never.
okay. Well, yeah.
So I've been very lucky in that respect. And thankfully, we had the opportunity to know that, time wasn't long because of the myriad, the complex health issues that he had. And we couldn't believe he was still going, to be honest. But he did because he was a fighter. But isn't it funny? I don't know about you, but after he passed, I learned more about who I am and who he was after the fact. Why?
Yes.
And in the funeral, I said, my sister couldn't read the eulogy; she had to stop. So I just stepped in and said, talk to your parents, find out who they are. They were 15 once, they were 35 once. Find out who they are, what they're about, because it gives you the answer to who you are. Do you know what I mean? And that was the most memorable moment of the funeral for me because I didn't know where it came from. I was just like, talk to your parents. It's like, because obviously I was crying as well. I was like, talk to your parents, find out who they are. And I'm not angry at myself, a bit sad about the fact that I never did. Still got mum with us, thank God. But, I'm sure I'll have that conversation with her in a few months' time when she's kind of coming out of her grief and whatnot. But it is that thing. We don't ever see our parents. I don't know about you, but we don't ever see our parents as people, human beings. We
People.
just we
Yeah.
just see these entities that go
We do.
around saying, do this, don't do that, be careful, wrap up, blah, 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 eat this. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. And you don't actually, until you're older, you don't realize, God, we are connected. We are the same person, isn't it?
We are. I mean, it's in the DNA, isn't it, Buckshot? But we don't realise when we're younger, and we just want our freedom. We don't want to be told what to do. But I'm an nursery nurse, ex-inspector for Ofsted for education, and I now know boundaries and rules means love. It
Yeah.
actually means we love that person, and children behave better with boundaries. And our parents gave us lots of boundaries. We could go
Loads.
out, loads of boundaries. I remember having said, "Mum, can I go to town on a Saturday?" And she had to come with me, and I'm like, "Really?" And all my friends went to town, and I just couldn't go to town, so I had very little freedom.
Yeah, me too.
That all changed in 1987 when I got married, and I got married to a man from Yorkshire, similar to myself.
So
However, he was,
you didn't have an arranged marriage, did you? Per
oh
se.
no,
Wasn't
no,
really arranged, but you know what, for 87, that was pretty right on, right
oh,
on. You were proper right on, you were, weren't you?
I was. Don't tell my daughter if you watches this. I was a rebel. I met this man. We were introduced by somebody, and I met him. Never in a million years did I believe. I believed in love. I believed in loving Mills and Boone and Mr. Darcy
Me
and the
too.
Bollywood films running around trees. I was in love with the idea of being in love. Never really
Yeah,
thought it actually existed in real life. Because we were conditioned, call it conditioning, call it brainwashing, call it
yeah,
expectations,
yeah.
call it culture. We were raised
Mm.
to have an understanding that we would have an arranged marriage. So from as far as back as I can remember, I knew my father would choose my husband. So there was no room for love. And you didn't dream big because you didn't dare dream big. So you thought, well, dad's going to choose my husband. And so that was the understanding we all had. And then I met my now husband, and I used to work in reception in the Bradford Museum Film and Photography. And actually, I met Martin Scorsese, I met James, I met the guitarist from Queen, Brian May,
Yeah.
I met Michael Fish. I met some really good celebrities while I was working at the Museum of Photography, Film and Television.
Wow.
However, I didn't know who they were. I thought Martin Scorsese was what's it? Alan, what's he called? The
Oh,
comedian. What?
I don't
The
know. I was going to.
comedian, Woody Allen.
What do
I thought Martin
you?
was Woody Allen. So I met all these wonderful people working at the museum, and in 1987, rainy day, this guy walks in, and I said to my friend, it was such a boring day, so this is such a real thing. Here's a real chat we're having. So no lie,
No
we're
lies.
marking guys out of 10.
Yes.
We were so she said, "Don't look now." 12 just walked in, and I looked at this guy and I thought, "What?" And it was like one, he could have had a halo on his head and like light behind him. I just thought, "What?" And he came up to me and spoke, and for the first time in my life, I was lost for words. I'm never lost for words. Um, And then he lit a cigarette, and I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "You're gonna have to extinguish your cigarette." He said, "Really?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "What you do if I don't arrest me?" I thought, "Oh, you
Ooh.
see."
How old were you at the time?
I was 21 and my husband was 30.
Ah,
He had my but he was sent there by a friend of my mum's best friend's friend, and said, "Oh, there's a girl at the museum, and she's interested in not having an arranged marriage." So he came to see me. I remember saying, I said, "You're Mr. Ashraf." He said, "Yes." I said, "Ah." I said, "Weren't we supposed to have lunch tomorrow?" He said, "Yes, but I want you to come a day early because I want to see what you're really like."
oh, in your full
Um,
glory.
8 weeks later, we got married.
Wow, no
I fell
messing.
head over heels in love with this man. Very powerful emotion. It was tangible. I could feel the chemistry. There was a connection. And when I met him, I felt like I'd known him in a past life, and I'd never believed in that kind of
Wow.
philosophy or thinking. Are we soulmates? I would say we are, because there was an instant connection, and it wasn't just physical. It was emotional. It was, well, my son is a chemical engineer. He would say it's a chemistry. It's a physically
Yeah.
chemistry reacts. We had this wonderful, dry, sort of huge, charismatic presence, and I was drawn to it. It was, and I hear these songs from Bollywood movies like a moth to a flame. Um, and then he said to me, being an engineer, he said, "Oh, well, you're not the most attractive girl I've seen."
Oh, shots fired.
He said, "But there is something about you." And I always say my personality is definitely better than my looks, because I grew a personality. I had a hell of a personality, middle child of 7. So
Yeah,
there
middle
was,
child of 6, you do tend to make that little extra
yeah,
effort
so we
to
had
be
this
heard.
instant connection. But marrying him changed my life, because he had said to me, "You can achieve anything you want to achieve." And he supported me wholeheartedly. And had I
Mm.
not married him and married somebody probably with different values, I probably wouldn't be here, because he supported me for 10 years while I followed my dream of being a TV chef.
Wow. This is great because what is it in life? I mean, I don't know if you've ever felt it, but me not having any support at all from the age of 13, 14, when I realized I got a voice and I could sing. And then I went on to do drama and music at school, wanting to be something in that industry, never seeing anybody on TV to relate to. So I didn't know how it was going to happen. I just thought I want to do that. And then and went into travel, tourism, apprenticeship. Well, they call it apprenticeship now. It was YTS then. And then going and my dad saying, "Oh, we're leaving. We're going to Derbyshire, and I'm setting up a shop, and you're standing in it, and you're going to be in it because you didn't do really very
Oh
well
my
at school."
gosh.
Yeah, so that's what it was for me. I didn't have any choice going forward after that. My life was always dictated to me. And so never having any support throughout school or throughout my early 20s and whatnot in my ambitions, they kind of went by the wayside. So, I mean, did you ever have
That
any
was
inkling of wanting to be a chef when you were like in your early 20s?
Oh my goodness, no. I
So
didn't
where
want
did
to
it
cook
come
like an
from?
Asian woman.
Yeah, where did it come from then?
um, you had said earlier about being creative. I'm a very creative person. So I do flowering. I mean, I beaded this.
Oh,
I made
wow.
my own. See these earrings I'm wearing? I make
Oh,
jewelry.
wow.
I make jewelry, I bead, I sew, I paint. And part of what I do with Indian food is the way I serve it, the way I style it, the way I dress it. And I always say to people, Indian food is not synonymous with elegance and style, but I change that when I do my Bollywood dinner parties. Everything is
Mm.
always beautifully set. So I think the creativity comes out in food. In terms of being a TV chef or being a chef or cooking for a living, oh my goodness, no, 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 no. I didn't want to cook like any other Asian woman cooks. It was such a stereotypical thing to do, and I fought against it for a long time. And my mother had said, "You need to learn to cook." I said, "Why?" I remember her making chapatis, and she'd stand above me and slap my hands if they weren't round. And I said, "Mum, what are you doing?" And she said, "You're never going to find a husband if you don't have chapatis."
Oh, my gosh.
And that's not how I got my husband, with my round chapatis. and that's not and that's not a euphemism. It was my mangoes. No, it was. um, so I never had any interest. However, I really could throw a mean dinner party, and I loved the creative side of cooking and serving and making things look beautiful. But then I married this man that I fell in love with, who was my world, who I had this amazing connection with, and all I wanted to do was feed him. It was terrible. I just wanted to cook this and cook that. And
Gosh.
I now know actually that's one way a mother does it with a child. we feed because it's I'm a feed. It's a natural way of love them. So I was, and he hadn't eaten. He used to eat out all the time. So I used to cook for him, and I found that I loved cooking for him. And anything he'd ask for, I'd make. Can you make rasmalai? I'll make that. Can you make smokes? I'll make that.
So,
And then he'd eat
at the risk of you sounding like
an Asian housewife,
yes, and
which I was.
totally not independent at all, can we just get some clarity here? So, is it a balanced? Would you say you've got a balanced relationship? He allows you to be and do whoever you need to be, and you love and enjoy being the nurturer of the household.
I am a matriarch. I so revamped, and I miss my kitchen so much. I wrote a poem for it called The Matriarch's Kitchen. But the need to cook and feed and develop recipes didn't come till later in life because I wasn't a trained chef, because I wasn't given any ambition to make cooking a job or a profession. You just think, well, actually, I'm an Asian woman, and because we are raised by our mothers to cook and clean in the kitchen or cook, it was almost, I fought against that part of my life. I didn't want to be a stereotypical Asian woman. I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to have children. I wanted to be somebody, but I didn't know what. So when I got married and decided that actually I quite like this, my husband would have business meetings, and every time we'd go out to a really beautiful restaurant in London, he would say the food was rubbish. We paid £300 and it was awful. So then he would wine and dine clients at home. So I started doing little dinner parties for his clients. And I found that I was very good at it because it was a whole ambience and creativity that came with it. But it was a hobby. I was known in London for doing the best dinner parties with my food and creativity. However, it was just a hobby. I then got a job. Things changed when I got a tumour in 2007. I was working we moved to Peterborough. I was working in a nursery. I took the nursery to the best level. I got a job as an inspector for Ofsted for Education. I had 3 children, supported my husband, was a very supportive wife, and we had very clear defined roles. He was the man, he was the main breadwinner. He looked after the cars, the garden, and maintenance of the house. Very clear. I raised the children and did that. We did it together, but we had very clear set roles. Then what happened is I got a tumour and I realised that my life needed to change. I couldn't just work for Ofsted and give all my energy to inspecting because there was no passion there. There was no joy there.
Where was the tumour? Where did you get the tumour?
It was in my stomach, and right. I just ignored it, Bakshaw. I just ignored it, thinking I don't have time to be. I've got 3 children to raise. I was travelling up and down London motorways. I was very stressed all of the time. I wasn't a nice person. I didn't enjoy anything in my life because I was so stressed because we had a mortgage to pay. So life took over. Beautiful big 4-bedroom detached house, so we had to pay a mortgage. So I went into some sort of like Stepford wife mode for about 2 years, not really enjoying anything I was doing about my life because there was no passion there. There was no joy there apart from the children. So life changed after the tumour. And then after the second, I had one operation to remove it. Fine. They said, no, it's grown. So I had a second operation to remove the roots. Then they said, no, it's grown further throughout the whole of your stomach. So then I had a third operation to remove all the roots, and I had biopsy. 4 hours, I was under 4 hours. That was a very serious operation. And that's when it was a pivotal moment. I remember going to hospital thinking, nobody can have 3 surgeries in a year and not survive. Why me? Why is this happening to me? I'm a good wife and mother. I haven't. So I decided that I was going to die. So I wrote letters to my husband. I rang my mum to apologise for my behaviour as a teenager.
Wow.
I was a terrible teenager. Life stopped. And my son wrote me a little diagram of an angel. He said, Mummy, you are an angel. I still got that picture.
Wow.
The doctor then read me my anaesthetics. He said, you'll be going under, you'll be doing this. As he's telling me what's going to happen to me for the 3rd time in 6 months, I just burst into tears. And I thought, why is this happening to me? Why have I got this tumour that's not leaving my body? It was traumatic. He said, look, I'm not this, but Muslim I am. He said, let me write you a prayer. And he printed out a prayer on the machine, brought it in, I read this prayer. And I thought, why me? I'm a good person, but it changed my life. I survived the surgery. I didn't die. And the moment I came round, my husband said, "That's it now, Parveen, you do what you love." I
Wow.
said, "I love cooking for people." He said, "Let's do it." So at
Oh,
that moment, the literally came out of surgery and he said, "Do it.
wow.
What do you love?" I said, "I'm not trained. I don't know what to do." He said, "You are brilliant. Do it." I went, "Right." So I came home after convalescing. I decided to set up my business. But then 2008 happened, and what happened?
Oh, I
Everything crashed.
know.
But that tumor woke me up. I felt I was in a coma before that.
Wow. Isn't it
I
funny
was, I was
how
absolutely silent.
we have to, it is unfortunate that we have to have our back against the wall like that, and the the thing they knock the doors down with the police, the door battering ram. Into unfortunately, we have to have the battering ram of life hit us right into the solar plexus. The
It was right
last
there. I
bit.
mean, it couldn't have been any. It was clearer. It was going through at the time, Buckshire, was horrendous. My children. I mean, I think the third operation. I think my lung collapsed. I went to ICU. It was traumatic, and I just remember thinking, I've just become a burden on my family. And but what that did is, number one, it made my children catch the bus to school and be independent and do the housework. And number two, my husband took over the duties for a year, so our roles kind of reversed. But that pivotal moment, and he said to me, "You do what you love," and I said, "But I love this." And so he said, "Do it, Parveen." So that was my first step on the ladder of becoming an entrepreneur. And then I designed. My son went to university at 18. I designed a recipe for him, and he then rang me up and said, "Mum, how do you cook chicken masala?" So the very first recipe I ever wrote was for my 18-year-old son who went to Manchester University, surrounded by curry houses, but wanted a taste of home. So the very first recipe was for him. And then he still didn't get the recipe right. And I rang him. I said, "What are you using?" He said, "Oh, Mum, shop bought spices." I said, No, you can't use shop bought spices. So I designed the spices. And what I did for an 18-year-old boy is put everything in a bag like this.
That's amazing. Never mind your 18-year-old boy. What about this 47-year-old woman that has not got a clue what to do?
But that again, from a place of love and passion, I designed this spices
That's
recipes for
amazing.
my son. And that my business began. And suddenly I thought, well, how do you do tax? And then I learned about marketing. I learned about all the logistic things about setting up a business. And I found that actually I liked actually running my own business because of the freedom it gave me. And there was no pressure of deadlines and things. And then one of my clients said, "Why don't you just do it? Come dine with me." So I said, "All right then." So I went on Come Dine with Me.
Oh, you did actually go on it, the show, the Come Down
Yeah,
the
I was
show.
on Peterborough. Yeah, I was on Peterborough Come Down, but I was Picky Parveen from Peterborough.
All the alliteration. What year
It
was
was
that?
gosh, 2000. Yeah, just before my set, about 2008, 2009.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
However, Buckshot, it's a TV show, so they edit you. And when I
Yes.
saw the finished product, I was, oh my
Yeah.
God, I was
Mortifying.
awful. I was awful. So I thought, number one, I quite like being from the camera. Number two, I don't want to be edited. So that's when I approached Ideal World. And lucky for me, it's a shopping channel, which you know of, that's based in Peterborough. My photographer, Jack, who took that picture, he was working there. He got me an interview. And yeah, it was
Oh my
meant to be.
God.
And everything I did went from click, 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 click.
Synchronicity at its best. Now with this
Absolutely.
spice box, just show me that again, nice and squarely to the camera here. Just show me the spice
Yeah,
box.
so I have,
So where
you're
can
gonna,
people,
this is brilliant, but this makes 30 onion bhajis or pakori, as we say.
oh my
So
God.
the spice box was born out of necessity and for my son. And then I designed this one, a vegan box, summer box, Shwari naan kit. And I realized, because I was creative.
So people can, like the camera's frozen, there it is. So the Spice Queen, the Spice Box, and that is available. So in there, you've got different ingredients for different dishes. Are all your boxes like different ingredients for different dishes, or is that
Yeah,
generic?
so this one has onion bhajis, lambuna, chicken masala, dal, and how to make rice. Wow. And then I have one like a barbecue one called the party box with a chickpea chaat, tandoori chicken, cumin roast potatoes. And then I have another one, I have a vegan version. And then I've got a Peshwari naan kit that makes naans, Peshwari naans. And that's because, yeah, I think because of my creativity, if somebody says, "Oh, can you do this?" My creative juices flow. And that's where it all comes from, a place of creativity and a place of love. It doesn't come from a place of, I will need to make money, because I really haven't made that much money. that's not my intention. I think intentions are everything. You set your intentions and your goals. But my intention never was to make money, and I still haven't made as much as I could when I was working in the corporate world.
Not yet.
However,
Not yet,
not
anyway. Not yet.
yet. God willing, I will. But the spice boxes are mine. And I got to go on TV and show my products. And every time my buyer said, "Oh, well, can you design this and can you design that?" I found I was very good at designing everything. But what I wasn't a very good presenter. And so you watch yourself back. And a lot of people are doing Zoom now and FaceTime and LinkedIn videos. A lot of people in the current climate with coronavirus are doing videos. And one of my friends said she tried to do video. She went, "Parveen, it's really hard, isn't it?" I said, "It's really hard to be yourself on camera." But you know, it's our job, it's our profession, so we both do it. But the first time I watched myself back, I did cringe. It was horrendous.
Yeah, and you're going to. And I think the beauty of that is knowing that it's your first time and that's it. It's only going to get better and better. And that's what I say to people when I coach them on confident communications camera. It's the doing that gets you better. It's not all right for me because you're an actor, Boxer. It's not that. It's that I've got better and better the more I've done it. And that's the same with you. That's the same with anybody. You just got to get it done daily. And I say daily for 30 days and you'll be an expert. Absolutely.
You've been expert. But for me, I have to cook. I have to talk. I have to get the recipe right. I have to make sure the camera gets the recipe at the right timings. It's about timing, communication, keeping your energy high. So there's a lot going on. And I found that actually I could do it. But again, I invested in myself. I did a cosmic order. I believe in manifestation. I did a cosmic order in 2008 to be on Come Down With Me.
Oh my God. This is another video. This is another video. We can't talk about this now, Parveen. We're going to have to do a video on your experience.
Manifestation.
Manifestation, yeah.
Yeah, I manifested it.
This is nearly an hour that we've been talking now, you know.
Oh my God, we'll have to wrap it up in the video. So I manifested it.
Charger, please. Sorry, I don't want my laptop to die on me at the minute. I've just got to get this charged up. This is real. This is unedited, folks. This is why it's called Real Talk. Ain't no airs and graces here, people.
Just manifesting it is not good enough. It's not going to land in your lap. So I've been networking for 10 years and that's how I met you as well. And I'm a massive fan of female networking. That's why I went to Love Biz to speak, because she reached out, because I'm a fan of female, because our dynamic, our energy is very different to men. We're more empathetic and we do business, but we're doing it a very different way.
Yes.
So I'm a huge advocate of female networking groups, and I still am, and that's why I joined Love Biz. So I met a lot of people along the way, and everybody I met, I sort of kissed a lot of networking frogs to get the right people. Correct. So I met somebody who did NLP. So I learned to take away the nerves when the camera came on, and I ground myself. I've got with this ring. I then met an actor who taught me how to act at being myself. And then I met a voice coach who then analyzed my voice and told me how to tweak it and make sure that I'm presentable. I met a stylist, and I met all these people throughout my life, and I sort of asked them to help me be a better version of me on TV. But it's still me. Well, it's her. It's me, her.
And that's the key thing. People need to know that there is space for you to be the best version of yourself. And a lot of that comes from being transparent, vulnerable, authentic, not pretending to know it all, not pretending you haven't been through anything, not ignoring the fact that you've had your trials and tribulations. Don't just celebrate the good times, show the shit times as well, because that is what it's all about. That is what it's all about. That's where you got. Hey?
Well, I would say show the bad times. That's interesting you said that, because one thing I wanted to do for the ITV show, Parveen's Indian Kitchen, is I made a couple of mistakes, and I said to the crew, I said to my director, can you just leave that in? Because people need to know that even I make mistakes, even though that sounds really, but even after 30 years of cooking, that's easily made, especially with rice and samosas. And luckily enough, there's one particular episode he left in when I dropped the samosa, and I made a mistake, and I giggled, and he kept it in. And actually, I got more comments about that than anything else, because it made it more real.
I'm telling you. Now, where would people go? Because I know I'm aware it's like 5 minutes before it's an hour. So let's bring this plane into land, Parveen, as much as I'd love to carry on talking to you. And we will actually do this again. And I think I've got a bit of an idea that I'm going to talk to you about. So after we've stopped recording. But where can people, A, watch your TV program, B, buy your books and C, your spice boxes, and D, I'm going through the whole alphabet here, you're not cooking for people anymore. You're not able to go into their houses and cook. Have you created something where you can drop off the bloody boxes like a takeaway? Can't you do that?
Gosh, that would be wonderful. But I actually no. So if you just go to www.parveenthespicecream.com, you'll see everything, and you can buy the book. I can design it to you. I can do hampers. I can do bespoke boxes. Everything's in the shop. I have an e-commerce website with CRM and everything. So my husband is my assistant at the moment at home, and we manage it in-house. I physically, my husband and I, we have a little unit. Every single spice bag is roasted, ground, hand-picked, hand-blended. Every single bag is made by us, handmade. That's why they are so beautifully authentic. I'm going to send you a box as well.
Please do.
So everything's about, all the details are on the website. I follow me on Instagram and Facebook, parveenthespicequeen.com, and I do all my own social media. I always answer everybody. And if anybody's interested, I do Zoom cooking lessons now. Yes. Because until this lockdown's over, there's not really any option for doing anything else, is there?
No. So when you say Zoom cooking lessons, people can hire you to give them a lesson and tell them what to do.
I do Zoom lessons. Yeah. So what I do is I send out a spice box. So they get out the spice box, and then we cook together. And then I tell them, I send them a schedule of what to do. And it's like having a personal chef with you in the kitchen. And normally girls get together 3, 4, and we do it together, like a glass of wine, cup of tea, and we do a 2-3 hour cooking lesson, and people are loving that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, one thing I really hate, and I've not seen your book yet, so I'm being very transparent and authentic here. So, you know when you get I've got some other I'm trying to think of a diplomatic way of saying it, right? I've got cookbooks. I've picked up it because I've never been a cook. I always went against it when mum and what's her name says.
Right, but don't be diplomatic. Just give it to me.
Whenever you said, you need to start cooking books, and I was like, why? Well, Indian girls need to cook, and I'm like, I don't care about that. I'm not going to be cooking for anybody anyway. It's not like I'm going to marry an Indian guy, and all this, which I didn't. But when they say, and put a bay leaf in, and get 3 bits of that and that. My mum never used bloody bay leaves. Why are you putting that in? You might mash up my cooking session now. I feel like I haven't got everything. I haven't got all the ingredients. How important is that?
Oh
really?
Dear, ye have little faith. So I learned to I wrote the recipe for an 18-year-old boy, so my recipes are extremely simple. It was very important to me that they're numbered. So it's stage 1, stage 2. So if you're making my tandoori chicken, which you can make in the barbecue, look at the ingredient list. Very small ingredient list.
That's all they want. That's exactly what you want. Because I know my mum only had a small list.
Yeah. So I remember it's a little bit of that. So even with my dal, again, everything's step by step by step. And the other thing is, if people are not confident and they think they've got the spice bag, they've got the spices, the recipe, if you go on YouTube, you can follow me and watch me cook. Again, practice makes perfect. I mean, my daughter still finds out how to make. So the recipes are number 1. There's a very small ingredient list, and I was very key on having a small ingredient list, back to basics. And every recipe is 5 or 6 steps.
Oh, that's music to my ears, And Parveen, I swear to God, I am going to cook one of your dishes, well, all of them from your spice box. I was going to get one anyway. But
how's your dal?
My dal is non-existent because I always think, you got a pressure cooker for that. Mum always had a pressure cooker.
I feel a challenge coming on.
There is a challenge. Trust me, when it comes to me in Indian cooking, cooking full stop, definitely a challenge. Now, I'm very keen to keep this under the 60-minute mark. So on this note, Parveen, I'm going to say bless you and thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to share all your details in the link.